are watching the Jennylyn Show, and I am Jennylyn Gleave, your host. Today, my guest is Mr. John Swensson. John, thank you so much for taking the time out today to come join me on the set.
I'm honored and humbled to be here.
Oh, thank you. You know, I didn't introduce you with a tag, because if I had to do that, I'd have to have segment 1, segment 2, and segment 3, because you've done so many wonderful things.
Well, you're very kind. I've been a soldier. I've been a teacher for a long time. Father, husband, car collector, movie producer. I've been very fortunate to have had a really fun life. And one of the things that I always do is work with a lot of young people and with a lot of students. So it's really been fun, and I'm really glad to be here sharing some of what we're doing at Anza College with you.
Well, thank you, and that's why I didn't want to introduce you with a particular label, because you've got so many. So I'm just going to start off with the questions, and I guess as we go along, we'll try to cover all of the wonderful things that you've done, if we can, in 30 minutes.
Whatever.
While I throw the hard questions at you.
All right, hard questions are fine.
So my first question is, almost monthly it's reported that schools in various parts of our country are closing. Education is essential and important. What are your views on what appears to be such a casual approach to education?
Well, it's a wonderful question. It's a very difficult time in education now because of our budget cuts. The populace and the voters have to decide the priorities for education and how much money. We're having huge cuts right now. And what that does is to make it more difficult for young people to get what they need. So they need to make sure that they're aggressive and taking advantage of every opportunity that they can to get the education that they need. I'm not sure casual is the right word. We're going through a lot of cuts right now. We're having to lay off faculty, lay off folks. We're asking the community for some help and having to cut classes. So you've got to be really sharp if you're a student. And it's possible to do that. There are lots of teachers, lots of counselors who are willing to help.
Does it bother you that so many of our young people are starting off their lives in debt? Because they're having to pay off, they're starting off, they graduate, and then they've got school loans that they're responsible for.
Well, here's my theory about that. You know, a community college, if you're a California resident, is very inexpensive. It's not free, but it's practically free. Books are a big expense, but tuition at a community college is a very small amount. So if you were to go to a community college, and we have lots of great community colleges. I happen to be from Anza. We've also got Foothill. We've got other community colleges in the area. If you go there for 2 years, then you can transfer to a 4-year school, and then you only have 2 years worth of expensive education.
Right.
And I view a student loan as investing in yourself. Not to toot our horn, but we're the #1 feeder school for Davis, #1 feeder school for Berkeley. So you want to go to a great community college, and Foothill or Anza, I'm not meaning to push those colleges, but I am meaning to say that students need to have excellence in their education.
Right.
And community college is a good place to start. It's really an excellent place to start right now, given the cost of education.
Well, I did not know that, so thank you for sharing that with me. You know, it's a very different time now from when we grew up, the world.
Right.
What are your concerns, if any, regarding the violence, the guns, the gangs, and the drugs that seem to plague our educational institutions lately?
It's really awful. It's really terrible. But you mentioned educational institutions. This is why education is so important. The way that you get out of poverty, the way you get out of these awful situations is to get an education and to make your own breaks, you know, to work hard. I joined the Army when I was 17 in order to get to West Point. So I couldn't get in right out of high school. So I said, okay, I'm going to take a risk, and I'm going to go in and try to compete that way. There are a number of opportunities right now. We have programs for special interest students, programs for Hispanic students, Native American students, African American students. There are always lots of nice programs that you can get involved with to make your own breaks so that you can break the cycle of gangs.
Well, you know, I hear what you're saying, and I'm very impressed that you joined the Army at 17. What was your rank when you left, and when did you leave?
Well, I joined the Army as a private, as a recruit at the age of 17 in order to compete to get into West Point. And then I retired from the Army as a lieutenant colonel in the early 80s.
Congratulations.
Well, it was a wonderful opportunity. Gave me great opportunity to travel. I lived in Africa, I lived in Asia, Europe, and the U.S.
And how do you think that's affected the person that you are today?
It's been very impactful. My 2 years that I spent in Vietnam have led me I now direct the Global Education Partnerships program at Anza. We take students back to Vietnam every year. We take students to, well, you mentioned gangs. We want to take students to Mérida in Mexico, but we're concerned about the security there. We take students to Belize. We've got a trip going to Taiwan and child development this summer. We have a sister college, Beijing Institute of Petrochemical Technology, and 6 sister colleges in Vietnam. And that obviously comes from my early experience in Vietnam and President Brian Murphy, his interest in Vietnam.
Okay. Thank you for sharing all of this. So almost all the schools and colleges that have been and are being closed are reporting it as a lack of money for the reason why. Do you have any ideas on how we can avoid this without increasing the fees for the students?
Well, there are 2 things. One of the things you have to be as a student is you have to be very smart and don't make sure that you don't take a single class that you don't need in order to graduate or transfer. So one way that you can save is to have a really intelligent educational plan.
Okay.
We also are going out now, and we're going out and asking the community for support. I do a certain amount of fundraising to support the Global Education Partnerships program, which uses no state funds at all. It's all based on private donations. So we have a variety of people, some of whom are alumni, some of whom are parents of our students who are very, very supportive. You know, we're in the Silicon Valley. It really is milk and honey around here. And there are a number of people who are more than willing to share. And many of those people that I work with are immigrants who came here, got their start at community colleges, have become very successful here in the Silicon Valley, and now want to give back to the colleges.
That's great.
But Stanford doesn't need any money. They have plenty of money. The community colleges need money, which is not a talk about Stanford, but it is just a thought that you really need to remember where you went to community college, because we're the ones who need a lot of help.
And I think so many institutions and everything in the world anymore seems to be centered around money. I mean,
yes.
I grew up in medicine. I'm a trained nurse, and I spent most of my life in the medical field. And when I chose that as a career, it's because I really wanted to help people to get better, keep people healthy.
Right.
And I look around me now, and almost all of them are centered around making money. I mean, there are HMOs in our world now, and they're health managed organizations. That's what it stands for. But if you really look at how it's structured, it's to make money. Do you think that part of why our education system is the way it is because that is the whole field that people are building on these days? Do you feel that that's more of a focus than actual providing a good education?
We have huge focus at the Anza in community service.
Right.
Whether it's global community service, international community service, or local community service. We have health care. We have a wonderful environmental studies program. Mm-hmm. We have auto tech. I don't see that we are focused heavily in the things that make money. We want our students to be able to subsist, be able to take care of themselves, and have opportunities. But we're not at our level into. I want you to have if you're my student, I want you to have the best life you can have. I make you write a 10-year life plan. You have to vision a goal, and then you have to write an education plan, a work plan, and a lifestyle plan. And if you and I can agree on your goal, and we may need some help from a counselor, then what I'll do is I'll give you a mentor to help you with your paper, someone who's already accomplished what you want to accomplish. I have a young woman or man who wants to be a nurse. I send them to Mamouna Ali, who has a master's in nursing. And she's a wonderful person. She came originally from Pakistan. the families, great supporters of our college. Mamuna will help you to plan your nursing career. So that's not really about money. It's about making you successful.
Right, and I don't want you to get me wrong. I do understand that if without money, an organization will collapse. You obviously need that because you have to maintain them. But sometimes I feel like things are shifting and the focus is more on making money than what the particular organization is supposed to represent. And I guess that's where I'm coming from.
Well, we have a very good business department. I won't say that we do, and I've been privileged to have taught in it. But we're really very much about just the success of young people and letting them make those choices. And we very much emphasize community service at every level.
Okay. So I know that apart from the Anza, you've done a lot of other things in your life that I find fascinating, as I'm sure other people do. So I'm going to switch the conversation a little bit, but we'll come back to some more of the Anza stuff. You made a movie, or you produced a movie.
Yes.
And it's called Firebirds.
Right.
Tell us about Firebirds.
Okay. I wrote, I'll hold this up so we can see it. I wrote this, created the idea. I was working with a partner. You know, we always want to work with good teachers.
Right.
I had a former teacher of mine who was a 4-star general. He was the #2 general in the Army. He and I sat down and we wrote the first storyline that became this movie, and then I took it down to Hollywood. We made this with Nicolas Cage, Tommy Lee Jones, and Sean Young. And it was a helicopter film, an action picture, came out through Disney in 1990 that showed young people, men and women both, learning how to fly helicopters. And then, because when you make an action film, you need an enemy, we made a drug gang that had its own jet aircraft and their own helicopter. We made them the enemy.
So are you the one who introduced the whole drug gang thing?
No. This is an anti-drug message. As a matter of fact, we have an anti-drug message from President Bush at the very start of this film.
Okay.
And the whole movie is focused against trying to defeat the drug cartels.
Okay.
So it was a lot of fun to do. I got a lot of help. I went to the library, checked out books on how to make movies. I got help from Joe Kane, the San Jose film commissioner, and really had an exciting time taking this to Hollywood, selling it, and then staying with it as co-producer.
Have you ever produced another movie?
No, I'll tell you, in the middle of doing that, we had the writer's strike in '88. In '89, I started at Anza, and they offered me a full-time position. And I just love being at Anza. I love teaching, and it's more exciting to me than making more movies. I've thought about it occasionally, but I'm very happy with my choices.
Okay, because I heard once you catch the bug.
Well,
that's it.
You know, Hollywood's a tough place. It's a really tough place. And I enjoyed my time down there. I actually, in another life, I commanded the Army's recruiting battalion in Los Angeles. So I had 59 offices in LA. So I'll stay in Northern California. Quality of life here is much better.
Wow. I'm just wowed, because I think I've seen that movie as I look at the cover of it. I am pretty sure I've seen it, but...
It's still on late night television.
Is it? Yeah. I'm going to make sure I'm watching it sometime in the near future. Well, apart from movies, you also have your own little toys that this is how this all happened. They met you at one of those events where you were displaying your cars.
Yeah, I met you at the Mountain View Car Show.
Yes.
Mike Hennessy from Hot San Jose Nights does a wonderful job of putting on community car shows. As a matter of fact, I have a car down in Campbell at the Campbell Veterans Car Show today as we're sitting here. But I have as a hobby to collect cars, and I'm on a teacher's budget, so I have a limited repertoire. But I have a very nice 1955 Imperial, which matched your shoes. And I have, my wife and I just traveled cross country and bought a Lincoln, sight unseen, '85 Lincoln Continental, came back and spent 4 days with our grandchildren, and then drove the car cross country. So it was wonderful for me to see the country. So I've enjoyed the car collecting business. It's a lot of fun people, nice people. We like to preserve and have nice old cars. This car's 57 years old. The Lincoln's about 28, so.
Wow. So how many cars are you going to be? Just the two?
For collector cars, just
Yes.
those two, yes.
Yeah, well, that car, I saw it. And it was beautiful.
Well, thank you.
And for my viewers, this is how I met this gentleman. My shoes matched this car. And someone was taking a photograph of me while I put my shoes next to his car without touching it, of course. And that's how we got to talking. And I found out he was a dean at Anza College. And now we're having this interview.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm very happy that you're here. So tell me something you've done in the past year that you're most proud of. Why is it important to you, and were there any positive
Sure.
results?
Yeah, in the past year, I've done an awful lot of work with the Veterans Club at Anza College. We have over 400 veterans at Anza that are primarily Afghanistan and Iraq veterans. You know, I'm so glad Iraq is over with. But these students come back to us from the war. They've served their country. A lot of them have post-traumatic stress disorder.
I was gonna ask you about that.
We have a much higher incidence of traumatic brain injury. So we've brought a VA office onto campus. We have a vets club. We have a special intake area for our vets, special counselors. We work very closely with the VA. And I've seen some wonderful progress among some of our students, particularly those who have polytraumas, a traumatic brain injury, and the work we do. We have a great disabled student program at Anza. We've always worked with disabled students, but now we have so many to work with. And it's been very enjoyable for me as a former soldier to be working with veterans from all services. And that's probably the most rewarding thing that I've done this year.
Thank you. You sound like a very compassionate, truly caring individual, and I think you're in the perfect place because so many people in the world need people like you to be role models who really care and who can be a light and a guide for them. So I think that I'm sure there are lots of teachers like you, but I know that there's some teachers that just do their jobs, you know?
Well, I've had a great deal of fun with the students at Anza College. And we have 1,800 international students and wonderful students from here. And I come in here today and you have one of my former students who's a producer with your show. It was so good to see him again. I know he wrote a 10-year life plan, and it's a real joy. The really good students, they keep in touch, you know. And so thank you for
Yeah,
Brian.
that's Brian. You know, he's worked on a lot of my shows, and he's such a good young man, a great young man, and I'm hoping that he'll soon be doing what he loves to do and getting paid for it.
We'll get it done.
Good job.
We're still working.
Okay, great. So what is the greatest contribution you think that you bring to Anza College? Because you talk about so many wonderful things. Well, which is the one thing you would say? I mean, I'm sure there are many.
Well, I enjoy the overseas program of letting students experience education overseas. But, you know, I think just the teaching, it's such a great privilege to be a teacher. And I have a program called an English class called the Individual and Community, in which I work with students to allow them to define their roles in the community. And we look at wonderful films, we look at Rodin. I take them up to the Rodin Sculpture Garden at Stanford, and we look at the Burghers of Calais and the sacrifice they were willing to make for their community. We go to the Gates of Hell, the community of sinners. And then I have them read works, sometimes Camus, and whatever we're reading, it could be Camus, could be The Kite Runner. The central piece of that is their 10-year life plan. And they have to write that research paper, and the whole course is focused towards allowing them to be successful and find their happiness. When I have a young football player who writes a 10-year life plan and says, I want to be a dentist in Los Gatos, and then he wants to stay on a red shirt for a year, and we kick him out of school and make him go to UCLA, and he's now a dentist in Los Gatos. You know, those kinds of things. When I see Brian and the success he's had, those are the things that mean the most. And teaching at Anza has allowed me, in many ways, the Army was the same way, allowed me to do a lot of things that I enjoy and to be creative and to work with students. So working with students has been the great reward.
Well, thank you. What successes have you had working with diverse populations, including students and colleagues?
Diversity is the whole the whole key.
Name of the game.
Yeah, we went to a high school graduation party last night with an Iranian community, some very good friends of ours from Iran. There were people there from India, from Iran. I have some business partners who are Pakistani. We have wonderful diversity at Anza College. I work very closely with Fernando Zazueta, who's chair of the Mexican Cultural Foundation here in San Jose. He used to pick on Anza College, pick fruit. Jean Wakatsuki Houston used to pick at Anza College. Okay, so and I've talked with her this week also. So there's a great joy in the diversity, and we learn so much from each other. And I encourage, in my classes, for instance, when I organize groups, and I believe that in collaborative learning that students should teach themselves, I always put that diversity in the groups, gender, skill level, and ethnicity, so that we learn from each other. And I for instance, in my online courses, I say to a native speaker, I want you speak English pretty well, you write well, I want you to work with a non-native speaker and help them. So there's a lot of advantages to the diversity. This is a great place,
Yeah, I think a lot of America, especially the ports of entry for lots of other, like I know a lot of West Indians, they come to the United States through New York or through Miami.
Right.
So those cultures are very prevalent in those places. In California, we get a lot more of the Asian students and the Mexican students here. Does the college allow for everybody to embrace their culture? Do they make it a part of their...
Absolutely. We make it part of our instruction. We have clubs for every culture. This is one of the reasons that Brian Murphy, our president, has this global outreach program that I'm coordinating right now. Diversity is a part of the, we have women's studies, ethnic studies, you name it. We have wonderful programs where we take, for instance, Hispanic students up to the Shakespeare Festival in Ashland. We're all about providing opportunity, and who you are and where you came from is a very important part of your identity. So we want you to be proud of that, and we want you to celebrate that and to understand it at the same time. And that's another role that we have in education.
Do you have a lot of problems with bullying? Because it's becoming, I'm sure that a lot of these things were very prevalent a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I believe because we all have free access to social media, things that in the past happened and we never got the chance to hear about it is being highlighted now because everything is being reported. Do you see a lot of that?
We have less of that at the college level, I think, than in the high schools or the lower grade schools. So I'm becoming aware of it. I'm interested in it, but it's not something that we have had a lot of issues with at the college.
Oh, okay. I'm glad to hear that because I don't know what's gone wrong, but...
Well, in those some instances, you always have interaction. We just would not tolerate it, and we have a number of things that we can do to make sure that it does not happen.
Great. I'm happy to hear that. How many languages do you speak?
I speak English, French, and German. I've studied Vietnamese about 6 times. I can't get it. But basically French and German and English is my limit.
Okay, that's a lot.
But we're going to take my grandchildren who are 6 and 10 to Paris this summer. So I have them studying Rodin, which is one of my great hobbies. I mean, Rodin is far more important than car collecting. But they're also working on their French, and they call me on the phone and count to 100 on the phone. So they're doing well. I think it's important. I think everybody should have at least one other language. And the earlier you do that, let me explain to you. I went to a monastery in Taiwan a few years ago, and the Grand Master, who was a 5th grade dropout, asked me to go down and inspect his school. Now, he had a lot of PhDs who worked for him. He had 1,200 monks and nuns. This is great Chen Wei Chen in Puli, Taiwan. I went down to his school in Taiwan. The students there, it was K through 6, they had to speak, when they graduated from 6th grade, English, French, Japanese, and Spanish, in addition to Chinese. So that's the competition. So I went into a computer lab, and there was this young girl there doing Photoshop, and I said to the nun, I said, how old is she? She said, well, she speaks English, you should ask her. So I said to the student, how old are you? And she said, sir, I'm 9. And doing Photoshop, but that's the competition. Wow. So it speaks to the importance of languages. So at least try. You
Yeah,
know,
well,
take some classes, find a language that you love, and do your best with it.
Good, I
And
agree
the
with
earlier,
that.
the better. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that my grandchildren are working on French.
So I want to ask the question that I mean, I've asked you so many, and that's what we've been doing. But this question, I'm dying to hear the answer. What
Okay.
drives you?
What drives me?
Yeah.
I don't know. I you know, I like to get up early in the morning, get on my bicycle. I think I don't know what it is. I've had so many different things that I've done, and such a joy from doing them. I have a lovely wife. We have a lovely home, and the military and the schools have given me these opportunities to do a variety of things. I always enjoy working with young people, so that's probably the driver.
Okay.
And then I also have an interest in business, so
Well, we're
that's another
almost.
show.
Oh, yeah, that's segment 2. So we're almost out of time, but what do you think it is that some people accomplish so much in their life as you have, and some people just go through their life just rolling through the motions, and at the end of the day it's over and they've done nothing? What do you
You know,
think is responsible for that?
we have a line in the cadet prayer at West Point
Yeah.
that we want to live above the common level of life, and it almost sounds a little arrogant, but I gave a speech recently to our honors club at the Phi Theta Kappa at the Anza. And I worry that the students don't have that opportunity to live above the common level of life. So I want them to find something like the Honors Club or the Honors Program or service. Go to Kaiser and be a volunteer. You know, find something to commit your life to.
Thank you so, so much. I don't mean to cut you out. We've run out of time. I want to thank you so much for watching the Jennylyn Show. We've had a very interesting guest here today. I hope you've enjoyed this show, and you're going to take away the messages that we've gotten from him on the importance of education. I'm sure you already know that, but make sure you educate yourself. Thank you so much. See you next time on the Jennylyn Show.